The stars stretched endlessly in the blackness of space, cold and silent. In the middle of this vast emptiness, the UTS Horizon, a Terran exploration and rescue vessel, glided through the void. Its sleek silver hull reflected the dim glow of a dying red star in the distance. Inside, the crew carried out their usual tasks, unaware that fate was about to change everything. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," called out Lieutenant Mira Hayes, her voice sharp with urgency. She was seated at the communications console, her fingers moving swiftly over the glowing holo controls. Captain Dane Carter, a man in his late 40s with a scar running down his right cheek, turned away from the observation window. His steel-gray eyes narrowed. "Source." Mira hesitated. "An unknown vessel, or what's left of it. The signal is weak. I'm patching it through now." The bridge fell silent as a broken transmission crackled through the speakers. A shaky, almost desperate voice spoke in broken galactic common. I'm coming. Now, please, help me." The voice belonged to a female, but something about it was different. Soft, trembling, almost musical. It wasn't human. Carter exchanged a glance with his second-in-command, Commander Julian Vance, a tall, broad-shouldered man with dark skin and a calm demeanor. "What do you think?" Carter asked. Vance exhaled slowly. "Sounds like a refugee. But from where?" Mira continued scanning. "I'm detecting an escape pod, barely holding together. It's drifting near the edge of Zorath 5's debris field." Carter frowned. "Zorath 5? That system was attacked weeks ago. The Zyre Dominion wiped out every settlement. If she's from there, she shouldn't even be alive," Mira said grimly. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Carter made his decision. "Bring us in. Prep the rescue bay." The UTS Horizon moved swiftly through the shattered remains of Zorath 5's orbital stations. Broken ships, silent and lifeless, floated like metal ghosts. The escape pod was small, spinning slowly. Its hull was scorched, its beacon flickering. Inside the pod, faint life signs pulsed on the horizon scanners. "Maglock engaged," announced Engineer Patil as the ship's robotic arms latched onto the pod. With a hiss of pressurized air, the rescue bay sealed the chamber. Carter and a team of medics stood ready as the hatch slowly creaked open. A wave of cold air escaped from inside, carrying the metallic scent of burnt circuits. And then, she appeared. A fragile-looking alien girl collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath. Her skin was a soft, silver hue, with bioluminescent blue lines pulsing weakly along her arms and neck. She wore a torn, form-fitting jumpsuit, stained with soot. Her long, pale hair was tangled, and her wide, glowing eyes darted around in fear. One of the medics rushed forward, scanning her vitals. "She's weak, but alive." Carter knelt beside her. "You're safe now. Can you understand me?" The alien girl flinched at the sound of his voice, but managed a slow nod. "Humans," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Vance crouched nearby. "What's your name?" She swallowed hard, struggling to focus. Vanna," she rasped. Her voice was soft, but carried a strange musical quality, like a song played in an empty hall. Carter offered a reassuring smile. "All right, Vanna, you're okay. You're on a Terran rescue ship. Who were you running from?" The moment he asked, her entire body stiffened. Her glowing eyes widened, and her breath came in short, panicked gasps. No, she muttered, her hands shaking. Mira glanced at her scanners. "Captain, we have incoming." Carter's blood ran cold. "What is it?" Mira's hands flew over the controls, analyzing the readings. It's a Drakari warship, class Devourer." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the name Drakari, a race feared across the galaxy. Slavers, conquerors, beings who fed on psionic species, draining their minds until nothing remained. Levanna shrank back, pressing herself against the wall, her whole body trembling. I followed me, she whispered in terror. They never stop. Outside, the distant shadow of a massive warship emerged from the darkness, its monstrous, organic hull glowing with eerie red veins. The Drakari had come. The bridge of the UTS horizon was tense. The eerie glow of the Drakari warship filled the viewport, its monstrous design unlike anything humans had ever built. Its hull pulsed with red veins, as if the ship itself was alive. The moment it appeared, every sensor on the horizon blared with warning signals. They just dropped out of FTL, Mira reported, her voice tight. They must have been tracking the escape pod. Captain Dane Carter clenched his jaw. Time to impact. They'll be in firing range in 3 minutes. Carter turned to Levanna, who was sitting on the floor, her body still trembling. Her bioluminescent lines flickered weakly, as if she was losing strength just from the sight of the ship. Levanna, Carter said firmly. Tell me, what do they want? She swallowed hard. Me, she whispered. They hunt my kind. We are Sheonic, and they feed on us. Her voice cracked. I am the last. If they take me, I will die. The bridge crew exchanged grim looks. Commander Julian Vance stepped forward. Captain, we can't let them take her. Carter nodded. Agreed. But this ship is a Devourer class. We're outgunned. A direct fight would be suicide. Mira's fingers flew over her console. They're hailing us. Carter exhaled sharply. Patch it through. A deep, inhuman voice filled the comms. It was slow, deliberate, and full of unnatural hunger. Terran vessel, surrender the girl. She belongs to us. Levanna let out a strangled gasp and curled into herself. Carter's expression hardened. She's under Terran protection. You will not take her. There was a pause. Then, the voice returned, colder than before. Then you will burn. The transmission cut. Mira's screen lit up. They're charging weapons. Carter's mind raced. The Horizon was a rescue vessel, not a warship. Its weapons were limited, its armor not strong enough to withstand a full assault. But humans had something the Drakari didn't: ingenuity. Evasive maneuvers. Carter barked. Engage the ion thrusters. Keep us moving. The ship shuddered as the thrusters kicked in. The Horizon dove downward, narrowly avoiding a blast of crimson energy that tore through the space where they had been seconds ago. Vance gritted his teeth. That was too close. We won't survive many hits, Mira said. Their firepower is off the charts. Carter turned to Levanna. Do your powers work against them? She shook her head, her glowing eyes full of fear. They are different, resistant. I cannot break them. Carter cursed under his breath. Then we'll have to outsmart them. The chase begins. The Drakari warship loomed closer, moving with an unnatural grace. It was not just chasing. It was toying with them, like a predator enjoying the hunt. Incoming fire, Mira shouted. The Horizon jerked violently as a shockwave of energy grazed their shields. Sparks flew from the control panels. Shields down to 60%. Patel called from engineering. Carter's mind worked fast. They needed a way out. Then he saw it. The debris field. The shattered remains of old ships and space stations from the Zorith 5 massacre drifted in the distance, a graveyard of twisted metal and forgotten battles. A plan formed in his mind. It was risky, but better than dying here. Mira, send a distress beacon to the nearest Terran fleet. Let them know we're under attack, Carter ordered. Vance, take us into the debris field. Vance frowned. You sure? That place is a mess of broken ships and unstable wreckage. Carter gave a sharp nod. Exactly. If we can't outrun them, we'll make them lose us. Vance smirked. Now you're thinking like a pirate, Captain. The Horizon's thrusters flared as it dove straight into the debris field. Massive hunks of metal floated all around them, remnants of ships destroyed by the Zyre Dominion. Twisted beams and shattered hulls created a maze of death. Behind them, the Drakari followed, slower but relentless. "Come on," Carter muttered. "Follow us in." The horizon wove through the wreckage, dodging broken ship parts and drifting scrap. The Drakari vessel, much larger, struggled to match their agility. It crashed through smaller debris, but the field was getting tighter. "Look at that," Vance grinned. "They're having trouble." But Mira's screen flashed red. "Captain, they're launching hunter drones." Small, insect-like machines detached from the Drakari ship, moving far more easily through the debris. Their red eyes glowed as they locked onto the horizon. Carter's grip tightened on the armrest. "We need to lose them." Levanna suddenly sat up, her eyes flickering with a dim glow. She looked around, her breath quick. I can hide us," she said weakly. Carter turned to her. "How?" She swallowed hard. "Psionic cloaking, but it takes a lot of energy." Carter didn't hesitate. "Do it." Levanna closed her eyes. The bioluminescent lines on her body flickered, then pulsed brighter. A strange humming filled the air, a soundless vibration that made the crew's skin tingle. Suddenly, the screens flickered. The sensors scrambled. The horizon disappeared. On the Drakari ship, the hunter drones stopped, confused. The warship's scanners swept the field, but found nothing. Inside the horizon, the crew barely dared to breathe. Levanna collapsed, exhausted. I did it," she whispered. Carter nodded, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did good." Outside, the Drakari warship slowed. It searched, scanning, waiting, and then, after a long, agonizing moment, it turned away. The monster had lost its prey. For now, the UTS horizon drifted silently in the debris field, hidden from sight. The Drakari warship had stopped its pursuit, its monstrous form scanning the wreckage. For now, the horizon was safe, but Captain Dane Carter knew it wouldn't last. The bridge was dim, running on emergency power to avoid detection. Levanna, the alien girl they had rescued, lay unconscious in a medical pod, her bioluminescent lines flickering weakly. Her psionic cloaking ability had saved them, but at a terrible cost. She was completely drained. Commander Julian Vance exhaled in relief. Well, that actually worked. Carter nodded but didn't relax. For now. But the Drakari aren't fools. They know we're here somewhere. Mira Hayes, their communications officer, kept her eyes on the scanners. They've stopped moving, but their drones are still searching. If they sweep close enough, they might detect us. Carter rubbed his temple. We can't just sit here. The second we power up the engines, they'll spot us. A weak voice spoke from behind them. We have to run." Everyone turned. Levanna was awake. She struggled to sit up, her glowing eyes dim but alert. Carter stepped forward. "You need to rest." She shook her head. "You don't understand. The Drakari never stop hunting. If they lose a target, they call for reinforcements. More ships will come." Mira paled. "More, as in a fleet." Levanna nodded weakly. "They will not leave this place until they are sure I am dead." Silence fell over the crew. Vance broke it. "So, running isn't an option. We have to outsmart them. Again." Carter took a deep breath. He had faced pirates, enemy warships, and desperate survival missions. But this was different. He turned to Levanna. "Tell me everything about them. What are their weaknesses?" Levanna hesitated. "They are strong. Their minds are like walls. Cold, empty. They feel nothing. My powers barely affect them." Carter frowned. "There has to be something." She looked down, thinking hard. Then her eyes widened slightly. "They rely on their hive network. The ship, the drones, even the crew, they are all connected. If you disrupt the connection." Mira leaned forward. "They lose coordination." Vanna nodded. Yes, if you break their link, they become slow. Carter's mind started working. A plan was forming. We don't have weapons strong enough to destroy that ship, he said. But if we can break their network, we might have a chance. Vance crossed his arms. And how do we do that? Carter turned to Engineer Patel, who had been silent until now. Can we overload our comms system? Something powerful enough to jam their connection. Patel scratched his head. Theoretically, yes. If we boost a high-frequency pulse through our long-range transmitter, it could interfere with their signal. But there's a risk. Carter raised an eyebrow. How bad? Patel sighed. Best case, we knock them offline for a few minutes. Worst case, we fry our own systems. Carter glanced at the Drakari ship outside the viewport. A few minutes was all they needed. Do it, he ordered. The plan in motion. The crew worked fast. The ship's transmitter, originally meant for deep space communication, was rewired into a makeshift electromagnetic pulse emitter. Patel and Mira calibrated the signal, fine-tuning it to the frequency Vanna described. As they worked, Vanna sat beside Carter, her breathing slow but steady. I should help, she said softly. Carter shook his head. You already did. She looked at him, studying his face. Why are humans like this? Carter frowned. Like what? She hesitated. You fight, even when you are outmatched, even when you know you might die. Carter leaned back. Because if we don't fight, we lose. Running doesn't always work. He gave her a small smile. Sometimes you have to stand your ground. Vanna didn't answer, but something in her expression changed. Just then, Patel called out, Captain, we're ready. Carter stood. All right. On my mark, fire the pulse. Mira's hands hovered over the controls. The Drakari warship was still there, waiting, scanning. The drones were closing in. Carter took a breath. Now. Mira hit the switch. A powerful pulse of energy burst from the horizon, invisible but devastating. The screens flickered, and for a moment, everything went silent. Then, the Drakari ship shuddered violently. The red veins across its hull dimmed, and the hunter drones froze in place. Their perfect, synchronized movement became chaotic, crashing into debris. The great warship itself lurched, like a beast struck in the head. Mira whooped. It's working. Vance grinned. Their network is down. Let's move. Carter didn't hesitate. Power up engines. Full speed ahead. The horizon's thrusters flared, and the ship shot out of the debris field. The Drakari ship was still recovering, its systems rebooting. It was a small window of escape, but enough. Patel checked the readings. Their scanners are lagging. They won't be able to track us for at least 5 minutes. Carter smirked. That's more than enough time. As the horizon jumped to FTL speed, leaving the Drakari behind, Vanna exhaled in relief. For the first time in her life, she had seen something she never thought possible. A species that could defy the Drakari and win. And for the first time, she wondered, could she fight, too? The UTS horizon streaked through FTL space, a blur of light against the endless dark. They had escaped, for now. On the bridge, Captain Dane Carter stared at the readings. Their hastily fired pulse had disabled the Drakari warship, buying them precious time. But he knew better than to relax. They will come, a soft voice said behind him. Carter turned. Vanna stood near the viewport, her glowing eyes distant. She looked stronger than before, but there was still a shadow of fear in her face. They always come, she whispered. Carter exhaled. Maybe, but we'll be ready. Commander Julian Vance leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. We can't just run forever. We need reinforcements. Mira, their communications officer, checked her console. The distress beacon is still transmitting. Nearest Terran fleet is 2 days away. Vance scoffed. Might as well be 2 years. The Drakari won't wait that long. Carter nodded. We need a place to regroup. Mira tapped at her screen. There's a neutral outpost 2 jumps from here. Ravos 9. It's a trade hub, black market, smugglers, bounty hunters. If we lay low, we might avoid detection. Carter considered it. Set course. Mira input the coordinates, and the Horizon's engines hummed as the ship veered toward Ravos 9. But Livana's expression remained tense. You don't understand, she said. You saw how they hunt me. They have ways to track psionics. If I stay with you, I put all of you in danger. Carter frowned. Then what do you suggest? She hesitated. You should let me go. Silence fell over the bridge. Vance let out a dry laugh. Not happening. Mira nodded. You really think we're gonna dump you somewhere and just leave? Not after everything. Livana looked at them, confused. But why? Carter met her gaze. Because we don't abandon people. She looked away, struggling to understand. No one has ever fought for me before. Carter sighed. Well, get used to it. Ravos 9. A dangerous refuge. The Horizon dropped out of FTL near Ravos 9, a station hanging in the void like a forgotten relic. It wasn't clean like Terran colonies. It was old, rusted, and crawling with criminals. Vance whistled. Charming place. Mira rolled her eyes. Try not to get stabbed. Carter turned to Livana. Keep your hood up. We don't want anyone recognizing you. She pulled the cloak around herself, her glowing skin hidden beneath the fabric. The crew stepped onto the station's main deck. The air smelled of oil, smoke, and almothing rotten. Merchants shouted over each other, selling weapons, illegal cybernetics, and things best not mentioned. Patel shook his head. Feels like home. Carter led them to a dimly lit bar, where contacts could be found. The moment they entered, conversations dropped to a whisper. The patrons eyed them like predators watching fresh prey. A large, scarred man leaned against the bar. His cybernetic eye glowed red. Terrans, he muttered. Didn't expect to see you here. Carter approached. We need information. The man smirked. Information ain't free. Vance slid a credit chip across the table. Now it is. The man chuckled, taking the chip. What do you want to know? Carter's expression hardened. The Drakari. How many are in this sector? The man's smirk disappeared. You don't want to be asking about them. Carter leaned in. We just did. The man hesitated, then lowered his voice. They've been active, more than usual. Rumors say they're looking for something, or someone. His eyes flicked toward Livana. Carter's hand moved to his weapon. You're gonna forget you saw her. The man raised his hands. Hey, I don't want trouble. He glanced around. But if you're hiding from them, you're already dead. Carter frowned. Why? The man exhaled. Because they're already here. The hunters arrive. The words had barely left his mouth when the station's alarms blared. A voice echoed through the speakers. Attention all residents. Unidentified warship detected. Prepare for lockdown. Carter's blood ran cold. Mira's scanner flashed. Captain, it's them. Outside the viewport, a Drakari warship loomed. Its red-veined hull pulsed, and black armored figures descended toward the station. Vance cursed. We led them right to us. Livana staggered, clutching her head. Her breathing turned ragged. They are calling to me, she gasped. Carter grabbed her shoulders. Stay with us. She fought to focus. I can block them. But not for long. Carter turned to his crew. We need to get back to the ship. Now. They pushed through the crowd, but it was chaos. People ran in panic as the Drakari soldiers landed. Their glowing red visors swept the area, scanning for psionic signatures. Livana gritted her teeth, her glow fading completely as she suppressed her presence. They reached a side corridor, but a group of Drakari blocked the exit. Carter drew his weapon. We don't have time for this. Vance smirked. Then let's make some. The Drakari soldiers raised their rifles, and all hell broke loose. The Ravos 9 station was in chaos. The moment the Drakari soldiers landed, panic spread like wildfire. Merchants abandoned their stalls, smugglers vanished into the shadows, and bounty hunters either fled or prepared for a fight. But for Captain Dane Carter and his crew, running wasn't an option. They were trapped in a narrow corridor, their exit blocked by 3 heavily armed Drakari soldiers. Their black armor pulsed with red veins, and their glowing visors scanned the area, searching for their target, Livana. Carter's grip tightened on his blaster. We don't have time for this. Commander Julian Vance smirked. Then let's make some. Before the Drakari could react, Vance fired first. His shot slammed into the lead soldier's helmet, staggering him. The other 2 immediately raised their rifles, but Mira Hayes was faster. She rolled behind a metal crate and fired 2 quick shots, forcing them to take cover. Livana staggered against the wall, struggling to suppress her psionic energy. I can't hold it much longer, she gasped. Carter turned to Engineer Patel. We need a way out. Patel quickly scanned their surroundings. There's a maintenance hatch behind that panel. He pointed to a rusted metal plate on the wall. Carter nodded. Get it open. As Patel ripped off the panel, the Drakari recovered. The lead soldier lunged forward, a crackling energy blade in hand. Carter barely dodged the strike, rolling aside as the blade sliced through the wall like butter. Sparks flew. Vance shot the soldier again, this time in the exposed joint of his armor. The Drakari collapsed, twitching. Mira yelled, more incoming. Down the corridor, reinforcements were approaching. At least 6 more soldiers. Patel yanked the hatch open. Go, go, go. Carter pushed Livana inside first. Move. One by one, the crew crawled through the tight maintenance tunnel. Behind them, the Drakari opened fire, but the narrow passage forced them to advance slowly. Carter was the last to enter. As he pulled the hatch shut, he saw one of the soldiers activating a communicator. They were calling for backup, and time was running out. A desperate race. The maintenance tunnel was cramped and dark, barely wide enough to crawl through. The air smelled of oil and rust, and every movement made the old metal creak. Livana panted. They know where we are. Carter's mind raced. How? She swallowed. They can sense me. Even if I hide, they know the direction. Patel cursed. So no matter where we go, they'll follow us. Vance muttered, Great. That makes things easier. Mira checked her wrist device. The ship's on the far side of the station. If we take this tunnel to the lower docks, we might slip past them. Carter nodded. Then let's hurry. They crawled faster, but the sounds behind them were growing louder. The Drakari were already cutting through the hatch. Suddenly, the tunnel shook violently. A deep metallic boom echoed through the station. What the hell was that? Vance hissed. Mira checked her scanner. They've locked the station down. They're sealing the exits. Livana's breathing quickened. They want to trap me. Carter clenched his jaw. Then we break the trap. The lower docks. They reached the end of the tunnel and kicked open a vent, dropping into a storage bay near the lower docks. The area was full of abandoned cargo crates and flickering lights. The distant hum of ships echoed through the metal floor. Vance peered through a side window. I see the horizon. It's still intact. Mira sighed in relief. Now we just have to get to it. But before they could move, boom! The far wall exploded inward, and 3 Drakari soldiers stepped through the smoke. Livana stumbled back, clutching her head. They're too close. Carter raised his weapon. We don't have time for this. The lead soldier pointed a blade at Livana. His voice was a deep mechanical growl. Surrender. The hunt ends now. Carter stepped in front of her, over my dead body. The Drakari charged. Carter fired at point-blank range, but the soldier deflected the shot with his blade. In the same motion, the alien swung, forcing Carter to dive aside. Vance tackled another soldier, wrestling for control of his rifle. Mira and Patel fired, taking down the third. But the lead Drakari was too fast. He grabbed Carter by the throat and lifted him off the ground. His grip was like cold iron, crushing his windpipe. Carter gasped for air, struggling. Then, suddenly, the Drakari froze. His visor flickered. His grip loosened. Behind him, Livana's eyes blazed with golden energy. She was no longer hiding. The other soldiers staggered, clutching their heads. Their minds were being overwhelmed. With a sudden burst of strength, Carter broke free, grabbing his blaster and firing a shot directly into the Drakari's faceplate. The soldier collapsed. Vance finished off the last one. Then silence. Carter turned to Livana. She was shaking, her glow fading. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded weakly. I didn't mean to do that." Carter put a hand on her shoulder. "You saved us." Vance checked the scanner. "More incoming. We need to go. Now." They ran toward the ship, dodging gunfire as alarms blared across the station. The Horizon's ramp lowered, and they rushed aboard. Mira slammed the controls, sealing the doors. "Punch it," Carter shouted. The engines roared to life, and the Horizon lifted off, rocketing out of the docking bay just as more Drakari arrived. As they escaped into space, Livana looked out the viewport. She had spent her whole life running from the Drakari. But now, for the first time, she wanted to fight back. The UTS Horizon burst into open space, its engines blazing bright as it left Ravos 9 behind. The station's alarms still rang in the background, and the Drakari ships were already in pursuit. Mira checked the sensors. 2 enemy ships on our tail, closing in fast. Vance cursed. "I told you we couldn't outrun them forever." Carter's grip tightened on the control panel. "Then we don't outrun them." Livana looked up. "What do you mean?" He glanced at her. "We make our stand. No more running." The Drakari warships were fast, sleek, black vessels designed for the hunt. Their red energy cannons began to glow as they locked onto the Horizon. Mira shouted, "Incoming fire." The first blast struck their shields, shaking the entire ship. Sparks flew from the consoles as warning alarms blared. Patil yelled, "Shields at 60%. We won't last long." Carter made a decision. "Vance, take the guns. Mira, find us a tactical position. Patil, give me everything we've got in the engines." Livana grabbed Carter's arm. "You're fighting them." Carter met her gaze. "No more running. If we don't stop them now, they'll never stop chasing us." Livana swallowed hard. The fear in her eyes was still there, but so was something else. Something stronger. She nodded. "Then I'll fight too." The battle begins. Vance took the gunner's seat as the Horizon twisted through space. The Drakari ships fired, their red beams cutting through the void. Vance gritted his teeth. "All right, let's see how you like this." He fired back, the ship's turrets unleashing a storm of plasma. One enemy ship dodged, but the second took a direct hit, its shields flaring under the impact. Carter spun the ship into a tight barrel roll, dodging another energy blast. Patil shouted, "We can't take much more of this, Captain." Livana suddenly closed her eyes. She took a deep breath, and the air around her changed. Carter felt it, like a pressure wave passing through the ship. Mira gasped. What is she doing?" Livana's eyes snapped open, glowing a brilliant gold. Outside, the Drakari pilots hesitated. Their ships twitched, moving strangely, as if their pilots were distracted. Then one of them spun out of control. Vance took the chance. "Oh, you are making my job way too easy." He fired a direct shot, hitting the weakened Drakari ship. It exploded in a brilliant flash. The second enemy ship veered away, its pilot struggling. Levanna trembled, holding her head. I can reach them. Carter understood. You're in their minds. She nodded weakly. I can confuse them, but only for a few seconds. Carter grabbed the controls. That's all we need. He pushed the horizon into a steep dive, heading straight for an asteroid field nearby. Mira's eyes widened. You are not seriously. Carter grinned. Hold on. Into the storm. The horizon shot into the asteroid field, dodging massive rocks as they tumbled through space. The remaining Drakari ship followed, weaving between the debris. Vance fired at the asteroids around them, forcing the enemy pilot to dodge. Let's see how good they really are. Patel muttered, this is either genius or insane. Carter smirked. Both. The Drakari ship twisted, trying to keep up. But Levanna focused again, her eyes glowing faintly. For just a second, the pilot hesitated. And that was enough. A massive asteroid slammed into the Drakari ship, crushing it on impact. The explosion lit up the field, sending debris flying in all directions. Mira let out a breath. Did we just win? Patel checked the scanners. No more ships on our tail. Vance grinned. Damn right we did. Levanna collapsed into a chair, exhausted but alive. Carter turned to her. That was incredible. She looked up, her voice soft but steady. For the first time in my life, I fought back. Carter nodded. And you won. She exhaled, then smiled, just a little. Mira glanced at the scanner. Captain, incoming transmission. Carter frowned. From who? She checked the signal, then her eyes widened. It's the Terran fleet. Carter straightened. Put it through. A moment later, a hologram flickered to life. A stern-looking admiral appeared, arms crossed. Captain Carter, we've received your distress signal. We're moving to your position. Carter smirked. Took you long enough. The admiral raised an eyebrow. And here I thought you'd be dead by now. Carter chuckled. Not today. The admiral's expression turned serious. The Drakari are moving in force. Whatever's happening here, it's bigger than just one psionic girl. Carter glanced at Levanna. We know. The admiral nodded. Prepare for rendezvous. We need to talk. The transmission ended. Levanna looked at Carter. What happens now? He smiled. Now, we stop running. She took a deep breath. No more hiding. No more fear. For the first time, Levanna was ready to fight. And the war was just beginning. The UTS Horizon drifted in the vastness of space, surrounded by the glowing lights of the Terran fleet. Massive warships loomed nearby, their cannons ready, their fighters deployed. The final battle was coming. Inside the Horizon's command deck, Captain Dane Carter stood with his crew, facing the hologram of Admiral Graves. The Drakari are coming, the Admiral said grimly. Our long-range scouts confirm a fleet of 30 warships approaching fast. Carter exchanged glances with his crew. 30. That was an entire invasion force. Vance crossed his arms. So, what's the plan? Graves' expression remained stern. We hold the line. The battle begins. The Drakari fleet arrived like a storm. Their dark, spiked warships cut through space, their red energy cannons glowing ominously. Carter watched from the Horizon's viewport. The Terran fleet moved into formation, shields up, weapons ready. Mira's fingers danced over the console. First wave incoming. Brace for impact. Patel shouted. The Drakari ships fired, their energy beams striking the Terran shields. Explosions erupted in the void, and the battle began in full force. The Horizon twisted through the chaos, dodging debris and enemy fire. Vance unleashed a storm of plasma shots, taking down 2 enemy fighters. We can't win a head-on fight, Mira warned. Carter nodded. Then we find another way. His gaze shifted to Levanna. She stood near the control panel, her hands trembling slightly. She had power, power that terrified the Drakari, and it was time to use it. Levanna's choice. Levanna took a deep breath. The psionic energy inside her pulsed, demanding to be set free. "I have to get closer," she said. Carter hesitated. "You sure about this?" She nodded. "I can reach their minds. Disrupt their control." Vance whistled. "You want to mess with an entire fleet? That's bold." Mira's fingers tightened on the console. "If she can weaken them, we might turn the tide." Carter sighed. He didn't like sending her into danger. But this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was war. "All right," he said. "Let's get you close." The gamble. The Horizon weaved through the battlefield, avoiding enemy fire as it approached the Drakari command ship, a monstrous vessel, 10 times the size of the Horizon. Mira gasped. That thing could wipe out a whole planet. Levanna closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind. And then, she felt them. The Drakari minds were like a storm of rage and hunger, their thoughts filled with conquest. But beneath that, there was fear. Fear of her. She pushed deeper, focusing on the Drakari admiral. His presence was like a burning star, his mind full of cruelty. But even he could feel her. And when he did, he hesitated. The Drakari fleet wavered. Their formations faltered, their pilots struggling to focus. Vance grinned. "It's working." Graves' voice crackled over the comms. "Terran ships, attack now." The fleet pushed forward, seizing the opportunity. Terran warships fired their cannons, cutting through the Drakari lines. The Horizon flew closer to the command ship, dodging enemy fire. Levanna gritted her teeth. The admiral was resisting. He was strong. Too strong. "I can't hold him," she gasped. Carter's mind raced. They needed to break the Drakari once and for all. Then he had an idea. "Patel," he said, "can we overload the ship's core?" Patel's eyes widened. "You want to blow up the Horizon?" "No, just fake it." Patel grinned. "Now you're talking." The decoy. As the battle raged, the Horizon suddenly stopped moving, its engines flickering. On the enemy screens, it looked like the ship was overloading. Carter broadcast a message on all frequencies. "This is Captain Carter of the UTS Horizon," he said. "You want the girl? Fine. But if we go down, we're taking you with us." He cut the transmission. For a moment, silence. The Drakari admiral hesitated. The fleet halted. Levanna seized the moment. She pushed with everything she had. The admiral's mind cracked. His fears spread through his fleet like wildfire. And then, they ran. The Drakari ships turned and jumped to warp, fleeing into deep space. The Terran fleet stood victorious. The aftermath. On the bridge, Carter exhaled. Did we just win? Mira checked the scanners. They're gone. Vance laughed. I can't believe that worked. Patel wiped his forehead. Remind me never to play poker with you. Levanna sank into a chair, exhausted but relieved. Graves' voice crackled over the comms. Well done, Horizon. The Drakari won't be back for a long time. Carter nodded. And if they do, we'll be ready. Levanna looked out at the stars. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running. She was free. And she had a home. The war wasn't over. But today, humanity had won. And that was enough.